Good evening, everyone. I am Advent Horizon T. Monteza. I am a second year theology student in Mountain View College. And greetings to everyone who will watch this video, especially to our beloved teacher, Mrs. Regine Subiga, our Fundamental of Music and Ministry teacher. So at this point of time, we will discuss about the pastor or the role of pastors in music ministry. So, according here, pastor act as guardian of his flock in the church. He must be the person who will remain standing from the beginning and the end of the issue in the church. So if there's a problem in the church, the pastor is the one who must deal with it because he is the guardian of the flock. Now, since the pastor is in charge of the spiritual well-being of his congregation, including the subject about ministry or the music in ministry, so the pastor have a role concerning the music because music is part of what? Music is part of worship. It was very rampant in our modern times that music was in the church was taken for granted. And there are some musicians who will play music not to glorify God, but rather get credit or fame for themselves. And this idea is not good. So, it is the pastor's responsibility to take over or is in charge of this problem. So it is the pastor who will find solutions on how to solve this issue. So we have here five assessments of the pastor on experiencing music in the church, or the proper way of performing or presenting music in the church. So the first is provide understanding of worship. The second is safeguard the worship values. Third, safeguard the unity of the church. And fourth is safeguard the relevancy of music. And fifth, or the last, to safeguard the unity of theme. Okay, so let's discuss the first one. Provide an understanding of worship. So it is the pastor's role to educate the musician, that the musician will understand what worship really is, so that if the musician will play an instrument or sing a song, the musician would know if the performance or the music that he or she would offer would relate to the biblical kind of worship. Second is safeguard the worship values. Now, worship values deals with standard of content and quality observed in all worship actions. So, it is the pastor's spiritual responsibility to observe and ensure that these values are respected and maintained in the church musical practices. So, there are three things that the pastor must check to safeguard the worship values. First is to check the message behind the music. Second is to check the emotional and behavior impact of that music. And third is to check the role of music in worship. And third is to safeguard the unity of the church. So it is the pastor or the shepherd's responsibility or task to keep his or her flock together. So it is the pastor's responsibility to check whether the music that was offered was meant to create harmony and unity of the church. And fourth is to safeguard the relevancy of the music. Okay, so we have here, music speaks directly to our hearts and touches us deep inside. So it is through our hearing that we will understand music, and music will reach into our hearts. So when people hear the music, they will understand it and enter or touches their heart. But the problem is how we can make it relevant, or the people will understand it and will reach their hearts. If we are using a dialect or language that is hard for them to understand, so the pastor must check for it if the language that was used or that will be used should be understandable by the people who are listening, or should be understandable by the congregation in the church. So the people who heard it will understand, and especially give understanding to the heart. And lastly, we have to safeguard the unity of faith. So this implies that one of the quality of a meaningful worship is that the music and the sermon is related to each other. For example, when we are listening to sermon of a pastor, talks about the life and death or story about Jesus Christ. So our closing song would be what? Would be like, I guess the song is Tell Me the Story of Jesus. So because it relates to the life and story of Jesus Christ, that when we knew the story of Jesus Christ, we are telling it to others that they will know who Christ is. Okay? So that's all. I hope that you learned something about the pastor's role in experiencing music in the church. So there are a lot of things the pastor must deal concerning the church, but this we talks about music. So I hope that we learned even few things, and we will be reminded on how to be conservative in the church concerning music. May God bless us all. Good evening, and thank you for watching.